It's time to refresh your yard during spring backyard days at the Home Depot. Get low prices guaranteed on propane grills starting at $179, like the Next Grill 3-burner gas grill. Or get $50 off the select Weber Spirit Grill and bring big flavor to your backyard. Then set the scene with Hampton-based string lights that bring it all together. Shop spring backyard days for 7 days at the Home Depot, now through May 6th. Exclusions apply. See homedepot.com/price match for details.
Ready to soundtrack your summer? With Red Bull Summer All Day Play, you choose a playlist that fits your summer vibe the best. Are you a festival fanatic, a deep end DJ, a road dog, or a trail mixer? Just add a song to your chosen playlist and put your summer on track. Red Bull Summer All Day Play. Red Bull gives you wings. Visit redbull.com/brightsummer ahead to learn more. See you this summer.
Last night, you spent 2 hours deciding what to wear to the party. This morning, it'll take you 2 minutes to list it on Depop and make your money back. Just grab your phone, snap a few photos, and we'll take care of the rest. The sheer dress and platform heels you'll never wear again? There's a birthday girl searching for them right now. Your one-and-done look is about to pay for your next night out. Or at least the ride home. Your style can make you cash. Start selling on Depop, where taste recognizes taste.
I'm Carrie Stevens. This is episode number 300. You're listening to Jay. This is your 300th episode, and I'm number 300, but you're always number one, Jay. I love doing your show. Thanks for having me on.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome back to The Hook Rocks. I'm your host, Jay Scott. Hope you're doing well. Hope you enjoyed your Halloween weekend. We had some great episodes over the weekend. On Friday, we did a live album review of Live After Death by Iron Maiden, the classic live album from 1985. And, of course, this past Sunday, we welcomed in the boys from Into the Void, the Black Sabbath podcast, to talk the legacy of Black Sabbath. So if you haven't heard those, please go listen and enjoy them. Great October. Thank you very much for tuning in. We had a couple of milestones that we are very proud of here. We hit number 24 on Apple's Music Commentary podcast. Big honor for that. And then the Good Pods application, we hit number 2 on music interviews, number 9 on music commentary, and number 20 in all of music. So thank you very much. It could not have happened without you listening and always tuning in to what I got to babble about and who I'm interviewing and what I'm talking about. So I do appreciate it. We are part of the Pantheon Podcast Network, a great music community of music-related podcasts. There's something for everyone on the platform, like Vinny Appice and Carmen Apice on the Hangin' and Bangin' podcast, Martin Popoff, the rock historian, Baco from Cobas and Fire, Tom and Zeus from Shout Out Loudcast, and, of course, Mistress Carrie all the way out in Boston, the rock and roll DJ legend. Also, check us out on all streaming platforms. Follow us wherever you do podcasts. Don't forget to set your app to automatic download so you get the latest and greatest Hook Rocks podcast right to your phone. Helps your commute, makes your daily life better. I'm telling you, it's stress-free music talk. Also, follow us on Twitter at The Hook Rocks and look us up on Facebook at The Hook Rocks. Also, follow Pantheon Pods on Twitter at Pantheon Pods. Also, Facebook, Pantheon Podcasts, and of course, PantheonPodcast.com. We'd like to welcome in, I know I just mentioned Mistress Carrie, the legendary DJ from Boston, but we're going to welcome in another Carrie who is making her third appearance, one of my favorite guests. She now belongs to the 3-episode club with Abby Kay, Chris Tapp from Cold Stairs, George Lynch, and we'd like to welcome in author, model, entrepreneur, and now kicking ass on Monsters of Rock Radio, Miss Carrie Stevens. What's going on, Carrie? How are you?
I don't know. I'm kind of jealous of this Mistress Carrie. I feel like I need a name. Like I need to be Queen Carrie or something. No, seriously, I'm also from Massachusetts. I grew up. So I'm just kidding. I'm not jealous. I'm honored to be in such good company of any cool rockers, especially female, because we are few and far between, but we're growing rapidly, and I'm very excited about that.
Yes, it is the fastest growing demographic in rock and roll. I don't know if that's true, but it sounds really good.
If you now that I'm on the Monsters of Rock as a DJ, they send me the charts, so I'm fully aware. And in the top 10 hard rock and metal charts, lately there are always 3 bands in the top 10 with either female musicians or singers or both. So that would be, let's see, help me here, Pretty Reckless and Hail. And what's the other one?
Evanescence?
Evanescence, yes. And Butcher Babies. And there's a new all-female band emerging called Plush.
Yes.
And and one of the girls in that band is my good friend's daughter. She's only 19, and they are killing it. And they have an all-female tour about to happen. Anyway, I'm way off the subject of Carrie Stevens at this point, but all very important because there's so many females rising up in the hard rock scene, and it's very exciting. I can barely contain myself.
You and I have had a discussion on the label of women in rock and female-led bands. And, we are in 2021. And I think that was okay for a while when you talk about Janis Joplin, and you talk about Grace Slick and, Pat Benatar, Ann Wilson, and other female artists throughout the years. But now I just like to call them rock stars or rock bands, right? Because I think they've earned that. And I know...
Yes, and that's why I like to see, as cool it is to see an all-female band, it's almost cooler to me now to see a band like the Butcher Babies, where there's 3 guys and 2 females in the band. It's not defined by sex, and by sex I don't mean
sure gender.
Yes, exactly. That's the word for it. It's not defined by gender. You're so eloquent. Jay, unlike myself.
No, I just think that's really cool, though. I mean, when you look at the landscape of rock and roll, for years it was a male-dominated industry or male-dominated genre, and for the most part it still is. But I think rock fans are becoming more accepting of...
I'm learning so much now that I'm a DJ on Monsters Rock, and it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Because I was a bit stuck in the 80s, and who has, not a lot of people have so much time to devote to learning about all the new music coming out, or music that I happen to miss over the last, 10 or 20 years. And it started out when I started at Monsters of Rock, where it was mostly songs that I knew. There was the familiar ones, and I actually asked to be challenged. I wanted to learn more, so I didn't want to always be playing like the same things I love, like AC/DC and Van Halen and Motley Crue, the standards. I wanted to learn what the newer songs were. And I got my son involved, and Monsters Rock asked me to give them a list, of what I wanted. And my son, who's only 20, so he was very helpful giving me the list of the up and coming bands. And then I asked Monsters of Rock to in turn give me some more homework about it. So I do so much research now, which brings me to another female. There's a song called Whore, and the band is called In This Moment, and that's another great one. There's just so many, and it's so much fun for me. It's truly like I couldn't ask for a better job or hobby because it's just so much fun doing all the research. And even bands that I have known of forever, I force myself to just look up the song and read the history behind it. I don't always talk about it on the show. I just kind of talk about whatever flies out of my mouth, and it's no rules radio. So like Monsters of Rock doesn't care if I talk about, what I happen to be doing that day or how I feel about the weather or the music. As long as, I'm halfway entertaining, I think. But, there's no rules about it. But if something touches me, if I'm reading the history about a song and for instance, I happen to have been to that location, like when I went to the Giant's Causeway near Belfast, Ireland, and I was playing a song, the Rain song from Houses of the Holy, it triggered that memory of my travels. So then I brought my personal life into the story, but I don't always. Anyway, the point of this is that it's just a really fun journey and a great opportunity.
I'm going to send you some bands to play.
I'd love that. Thank you.
I will do that. I will send you like a handful every week. I won't give you this list of 30 or 40, but I'll send you a handful every week, and you play them if you like them. If you don't like them, that's up to you. If you do, that'd be great, because new bands and emerging artists need so much support right now. So I know they would definitely appreciate it if they could get on a platform like that.
Yeah, I would be happy to listen, and I like your idea of a handful, not send me 1,000 a week. But yeah, because then I can really listen and pay attention and help out if I can. So I'd love to.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'm always excited to learn too. Like I said, it's become like my hobby. It's just I don't know. It's like tapping into. When I was in high school, I actually wanted to be a music journalist. Journalism was my major in college, and I was the entertainment editor of my high school newspaper. And so this little venture of mine is now the closest that I have come to my original dream. It's kind of come full circle somehow.
That's interesting, because my favorite class in high school was journalism. And, I had, aspirations of being a journalist, and I never finished college.
That's pretty much what you're doing on this podcast. So you are a rock journalist.
Yeah, I never really consider myself a journalist, though. I always just consider myself a guy that likes to talk about rock music.
But broadcast journalism is what you're doing.
I guess. I don't know. I never.
Well, I think there's no rules much anymore, because nothing makes sense anymore.
Right.
I'm glad I didn't stick with a degree. I dropped out of college and ran off with KISS. If anyone listened to your previous podcast with me, they know my story. But I got sidetracked over the years, but it all came full circle. But when I started out in college studying journalism, what I didn't like about it is that they trained you to take what you creatively did, whether you mostly wrote, but sometimes it would be a broadcast, and then you had to shorten it. You had to just tighten it down to the 5 facts, the 5 boring sentences, and take all of your creativity out of it. And they called that journalism. And that's when I said, I don't know if my heart's in this. And I then life took a huge different turn. And now look at journalism. This is why I don't watch the news, because it's basically a joke now. Anyway.
How did the Monsters of Rock opportunity happen? I know you did some fill-in stuff maybe a couple years ago. Weren't you on there once before?
It's a funny story. Oh, it's it's a funny story because I've actually been on there. I think my first time was probably 27 years ago. I mean, I've been on as a guest. I've been interviewed several times after Eric Carr died. So in the earlier part of the 90s. And then after I was a playmate I was Miss June 1997. So several times over those years, Harlan, CEO of Monsters of Rock, contacted me and we did interviews. And then about 4 years ago, when I was modeling Van Halen merchandise, Chips and Up and Harlan had me live in the studio to do a whole 3-hour forum, a Van Halen forum in studio. So I think that was about 4 years ago. 3 or 4, geez, I've lost track of time. It was probably 4 now. So I don't know. Anyway, then during the pandemic, when my book was released, Unrated, Revelations of a Rock and Roll Centerfold, I sent Harlan a copy. Monsters of Rock has always been very supportive of me, so I included them, in my acknowledgments, and I sent him a copy. And he contacted me after he read it, and he said, "How about doing a 1-hour special for us sometime?" And I said, "Sure, I'd love to." And I waited, and he said, "Do you have access to a recording studio?" Because we were locked down. And I said, "Well, sure, I can find one." And then he just never got back to me. And then he called again because they needed someone to fill in for the morning show host when she was out. And I said, "Yes, I'd love to." And then he never called again. And I was like, "Oh my God, this is like my acting career. Like I keep booking movies that just never happen. Like I just audition for things and you just never hear anything again." And I was getting really frustrated. And then all of a sudden he just calls one day and gives me a Thursday. And then I did well, and he gave me another Thursday and another Thursday. And then I didn't really know what was going on until I actually saw on their social media, Carrie Stevens, Thursdays. And it was 4 to 7, and now it's 4 to 8. And so yeah, it's going very well. I love doing it. And obviously they must be pretty happy with me to keep me around. So it's a good fit. It's a really good fit.
Plus you got your sister in arms, Claudia. She's doing it too, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think, no one ever explained it to me, but I think Claudia was probably the master force behind bringing me on board. Because I know that she's the one, she never did need a fill-in, but they thought she was going to. And so I think that she's the one that recommended me for that. And then somehow that recommendation just lit a spark, and they just decided to give me my own show. So that's how it happened. So she is probably to thank for that. Although Claudia and I became really close. We just became really good friends, and we really understand each other. We're both girls. We don't have any competitiveness or jealousy. We've got each other's backs. We've got integrity. She rocks, she's, and she's got a lot of empathy. She's just really a good person, and she's a lot of fun. Everybody knows that. She's a comedian, and she's got great taste in music. She's also, she's just like really an empathetic person where I barely knew her. I mean, I did an interview about my book on a podcast that she was co-hosting, and we stayed in touch. And, she bothered to check on me, during times where, I guess she just had some intuition. It was especially during that difficult time of the pandemic and the lockdowns. And she would check in on me, just check to see how I was doing and keep in touch with me. And, and then I started likewise doing the same for her, and it grew into a friendship. I mean, we have a lot in common. She's writing a book. It's called, I think it's called 10 Things to Hate Before You Die. And
yeah, she mentioned that when she was on my show.
Yeah, she's about to release that. And since I self-published my book, I've been giving her a lot of advice about how to do it. And it's I'm so proud of her for actually doing it, because if anyone knows I do, how much work it is.
I need to have her back on the show. It's been, 2 years since
Oh,
she's
you should
done.
have us on together.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Of course, you'll never get a word in edgewise.
That's fine. I mean, I'll try to wiggle my way in there, but yeah, that'd be a great experience. She was on back, I think, in November of 2019 when I was just first starting out. By the way, folks, if I did forget to mention this in the beginning, this is the 300th episode, and that is the reason why I know that is the reason why Carrie's on, because I was thinking of who I wanted on for the 300th episode, and I'm like, it's got to be Carrie Stevens. Because every time,
really? I was the first one you thought of.
The first one I thought of, because for my 2-year anniversary, I had George Lynch, and we did this epic interview about his activism and his documentary that he did a few years ago. And, he's always been great whenever he's on, and he's done the show, like 3 times. So he should probably be doing it again coming up soon. And I was thinking, who am I going to have? I got to have someone who I really enjoy having on, who my listeners really enjoy when they're on. And I'm like, it's got to be Carrie Stevens. It has to be, because every time you're on
I said
the
yes
podcast.
Immediately.
You did.
Even though
you did.
I have not. Yeah, but you're the only one that I would have said yes to, because I have been taking a podcast break for a while, because I just did so many after my piece. And I started to get into a depression. And I think, a lot of people were depressed during, especially as that, the never ending pandemic was winding down. But I really had to dig deep to find out why I had more depressed than I'd ever been in my life. And I was actually reading my own book to try to remember who I am. Because I would say to my son, have I always been this depressed? Have I always been like this? And he's like, no. And I'm like, what happened to me? So I literally, my own book, trying to remember who I am. And I was trying to find myself at the end of my book. I travel all over the world by myself. I went to the Dominican Republic. I went to Italy. I went to Ireland for almost 9 weeks. I traveled all over searching for my soul. And then I find myself in the pandemic going, I have no idea who I am. Like, I feel lost, depressed, hopeless. Who am I? And what I realized from reading the last chapter of my own book is that everything that made me happy to that point, I undid by releasing my book and talking so much about my past. Because in the book, I find out that traveling to places where nobody knew anything about me, no one knew that I was a Playboy playmate, no one knew that I was a mother, nobody knew that I was, someone famous's girlfriend, who passed away. Like, no one knew anything about me. So I was able to just shed 50 years worth of judgment, whether that's self-judgment or other people judging me or my perceptions, just being somewhere where often people didn't even speak the same language as me, never mind know anything about me. It really forced me to be in the moment and just almost be reborn, where I was just Carrie Stevens, not Carrie Stevens, the actress, Carrie Stevens, Eric Carr's girlfriend. Like, I was just me. And what I learned was to be in the moment and love myself. So everything that I learned about being in that moment and finding that happy place, I had kind of undid that by releasing my book and then spending a year only talking about my past. So I wasn't living in the moment. Well, a lot of us felt like we had no moment anymore because of the lockdown. But in addition to that, I really enjoyed the anonymity, the being just nobody knowing anything about me. And then what did I do? I put myself completely out there, which actually worked out better than I thought. I was going to say fed myself to the wolves, but I was met with a lot of love and support. But, also going back in time and talking constantly about my past really made me feel like I've already done it all and I don't have anything else to live for. I didn't have a future. So I had to kind of come to peace spiritually with some things that were haunting me. And you can guess, Eric Carr was at the top of my list. So talking about him as much as I did, because he is the major interest. Everyone's interested in him when it comes to my story. And I don't blame them for that. And I'm honored to be able to preserve his memory and share, that love. But at the same time, living with a ghost and living in the past, you kind of, it's kind of like a very lonely, hurtful place. And one that is too difficult to even put into words with anyone. But I felt like, and I do still feel like I'm in a relationship with Eric, but I had to come to some terms with him that I am in a spiritual relationship with him. And he has his very special place in my life, and he always will, but I need to live in the living. And I think that line got very confused. I hope this makes sense to you. But it got confusing to me, like in the ending of my life, when I'm talking about the past so much. You're talking about my love for Eric and my relationship with him so much. It's almost like, you feel like you're dating a dead person. And, there has to be a healthy boundary there of letting go and opening yourself up, to the real world that's in front of you. And people don't want me to do that, really. Most people just want to see me, as if it were 30 years ago in 1990 and I'm Eric Carr's living memorial. And that's it's been a very trying place, to live. And I think I finally found some balance with it. And a huge portion of it was going public, with my story. And now, I am forever proud of myself because writing about it in my book keeps his memory alive. He's not here to write his own book himself. I shared it the best I could. And, so for that, I'm extremely proud of it. But then after a year of only talking about the past, it was time to step, get my feet back on the ground again, get my bearings about me and be my own person. And that is almost exactly when Monsters of Rock, in the depths of my depression and my self-discovery, Monsters of Rock finally came along with this opportunity. And the first few shows I had, they put Kiss in it. And of course I felt, no one told me to, but I felt obligated to talk about Eric and to talk about my history with the band. And then, I have a weekly conference call with Harlan, the CEO of Monsters of Rock, every week. And he happened to on that day I was doing, 3 months ago now, I was doing the last podcast I did before this one. And, I made a comment like, oh, this is going to be, one of those days because I have to do this podcast after this. And, even though I said I want to talk about more than Eric Carr, I know that's what's going to happen. It's what always happens and it's always draining. And, it's emotional for me. And he said, you know what, Carrie, how about this? He goes, how about for the next 4 weeks, we take Kiss off your playlist? And I said, thank you so much. I said, thank you, because I really want to gain my own identity. I don't always want to be living as Eric Carr's ex-girlfriend. I want to be my own person. Is there anything wrong with that? He's been gone for 30 years. It's time for me to be me. Yeah. And I think he would be extremely proud of me for that. And I can feel his pride shining on me. I'm still very connected to him. And there's nothing wrong with me keeping my spiritual connection with him. I always will. And, but it's up to me, to find a balance, and a happy place, to live with that, and boundaries with when I'm comfortable sharing it and talking about it and when I'm not. And now that we have that brought up, the 30-year anniversary. Well,
that's what I was going to mention is you're talking about living in your past. You're talking about Eric. The first thing I wanted to say to you is, whenever we talk, we have like these epic long conversations. After we're done, we talk for hours. And you and I have, talked about a lot of things. And you did express this to me that, everybody wants to talk about all these things, but yet this was in your book and you kind of felt like you had to talk about them, even though your book, which was great, which is now in hardcover, by the way, and I'll get to that in a little bit. You also had a lot more in that book too, and I think when you
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to remind everybody that Eric has been gone
right
since 1991,
right.
And we are in 2021, and so I was only 18 when I met him, and I was only 22 when he died. And I have not gotten much criticism on my book. I've looked at the reviews, but there was one idiot on there and on my Amazon reviews is like, this is terrible. I expected, way more about Eric, and I was painful to have to read the rest of a book. And I'm like going, it's not a book about Eric Carr. It's not a book called Eric Carr. It's not. It's called Unrated Revelations of a Rock and Roll Centerfold. Nowhere do I say this is a book about Eric Carr. That's your own imagination, okay? So I have been around. I'm now 52 years old. He died when I was 22. You do the math. There's been a lot more that's gone on in my life. And
right.
Look, I wish I had more than 4 years with him. I don't have more than those 4 years to talk about. So I hope that idiot that made that stupid comment is listening. But, I can't, unless you want me to be a liar, I can't invent stories that didn't happen. They ended when he died, when I was 22. The rest of it, and he is actually in every single chapter of my book, except one. He is mentioned in every single chapter of my book, but that's because he has such a powerful influence on me, and he's always walked with me, and I've never let go of him in my heart, and for that he's influenced everything that I've done. But can I keep telling you new stories about him? No, because he died in 1991, and I wish I had more, but I don't. Period.
What I wanted to mention is, first about the book. The book is, like you said, there is a lot in there about Eric, but there's a lot more, and it's really about your journey and what your life was.
It's a survivor story.
It is.
It really
totally
is. It
totally is. And, when you talk about the depression you went to, about living in the past, and I think there is something to it, but I also think, you've had a life full of adventure, right? And when you're reflecting on all that, right? When you're reflecting on all that.
But thank you for saying adventure, because there's a reason I wrote a book. It's because my stories they're worthy of hearing. And I would always be out with people, and people would be like, oh, tell so-and-so the story about this and that, because I have these great stories. And that's kind of like, okay, I should write a book. It wasn't like time to write a book about Eric. It was kind of like, wow, I have had quite, an interesting life, and maybe I'll try writing about it, and it turned into a book.
Right. And I think that, when you talk about how it affected you, I think, yes, living in the past and in living all these memories over again, you then you kind of bury your soul. Like, you kind of bury yourself to people reading it. And I think when you do that, and when you've had, so many things happen in your life, and so many relationships, whether it's with Eric, whether it's with Hugh Hefner, whether it's with Howard Stern, or, the friendship you have with David Lee Roth. John Elway is a big part of the book too as well. I think when you do that and you bare your soul, basically, it does cause a little bit of a anxiety, in you, that, not that you're afraid to tell your stories and talk about your life, but I think it's more about, you expressed emotion in that book that maybe you hadn't really felt in a long time. And, I talk about a lot about it when I interview people about writing songs and tapping into an emotion, whether it was a happy time or uncomfortable time. There is that vulnerability there. And I think when you go through that experience like you did with a whole book, there is that wave that comes later with, oh my God, like I just cataloged my whole life, or pretty much my whole life. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, there's been so many waves of emotion after releasing it, but mostly I have to say it was empowering because I had so much anxiety before it came out. Like I honestly thought I wouldn't be able to do my own social media. I expected to have so many haters. I thought I would have to like hire my son or one of his friends to like scan it before I looked at it because I wouldn't be able to handle seeing all the mean haters on. I don't know why I was thinking that because honestly, like I think since the book came out, I think I got one mean email, and it's like I'm literally one. I can't. I mean, I can't police the entire internet, but like, the point is, I had nothing to worry about, and it was finding out that my fears were unbased is empowering. You know, like I for some reason, I was going to do it anyway, even though I was afraid. I don't even know what I was thinking, but I remember having those fears, and then they were unfounded because I've gained like an army of love and support instead of a bunch of haters. So I'm not sure why I thought I deserved that. That's interesting. But yeah, it's been the opposite, and it's also been quite empowering because you stop giving a shit what anybody thinks anymore. You know, like I really don't care what anybody thinks of anything, and there's such freedom in that, in just being me. You know what? And I'm not for everybody. No one has to like everything I do. But me not caring feels better than always worrying what somebody else is going to think. So I like that feeling. I'm glad that I put it all out there. If anything, you know, I don't know. It made me more comfortable with myself. Should I say that? I guess like when you face a fear and then, you know, you get more brave. That's what it is. Sure.
Now that you mentioned that, you know, Eric's passing, the 30th anniversary of his passing is coming up in November. And we just talked about, you know, living in the past and reflecting on that. How are you going to, you know, handle this? How are you just going to take it as it comes, or is there, you know, something that you need to do?
I've been doing. Like I've been co-producing a documentary that we had hoped to release about Eric Carr on November 24th, the anniversary of his death. I've been working closely with his sister and another producer, Jack Sawyer. We were hoping we'll probably have a trailer out by November 24th. So, you know, I honor him in many different ways. That's a public way, in a way that I bond, you know, with those, like his sister, and Jack was another close friend of his, their producer. And, you know, obviously with, you know, the interviews in the book and all the talking I do about him, I feel like, you know, for the past 30 years, I've been basically his living memorial, and I've been carrying the torch. So I don't feel like I have to do anything in particular on that particular day. Anniversaries and birthdays are always difficult for me, and some years they're harder than others, and I can never really pinpoint exactly why. But I've found some tools that I practice to protect myself because there are triggers, mainly in the form of you know, outsiders. And so usually what I do is I will, the night before an anniversary of a passing or birthday, I go on social media and I'll put my post up the night before. And then I make a pact with myself. I do not look at it the day of, because it will be way too emotional. I will get like so caught up in it. Like it will just take me to such a deep, dark place because there's just too much of it at once that I just have to back off. And then slowly, you know, this is the same thing. He just got inducted to the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame, and I gave the speech. I couldn't look at all the comments right away. I posted it. And then slowly, over the next couple months, I slowly go back and I will look at the comments, and it takes me, a long time. It'll take me a long time. I just started opening my Facebook fan mail requests on my fan page. I haven't looked at them since that came out. And, I'm getting so many amazing supportive messages by his fans thanking me, for the speech and saying that Eric would have been so proud of me and the words that I chose were perfect and all that. And I love reading all of that stuff. And that's amazing. And by the way, I did not have one negative comment. They're all amazing. It's just that, I have to pace myself so that I am also living in the present, not just completely in the past, or it gets me, like I said, into a very dark place that I can never go back to. I can't bring him back to life, So that's I have to just have my my tools and boundaries in place, and I feel like I'm in a really good place with it right now. So I'm sure that I will get asked to do. If they're going to start like any minute now, I'm going to be asked to do a lot of podcasts and interviews, and most of them I am going to say that I would rather wait until the documentary is about to come out, because then everyone's going to want to do another interview with me about the documentary. So the only ones that I will do are ones I already have relationships with, like with yourself. And like if Tom and Deuce ask me, I'll go on Shout It Out Loudcast, people that I already know and I'm comfortable with. I think that's what my boundary is right now. And I apologize that I'm just not, like available to every single person. But like I said, like people have to like respect my comfort level, and my mental health is more important than anything else. That has to be not my number one priority, is my mental health. And I don't think I owe anybody an explanation for that. I'm just doing it. I'm just taking care of me.
Certainly not. I mean, I 100% agree with you. I mean, you gave a lot of yourself when you wrote the book, and you gave a lot of yourself to many different outlets to talk about the book. And
my pet peeve, by the way, is giving interviews to people who haven't read the book. And I only slipped up a couple times. Normally, I make sure people read the book before I say yes, but I slipped up a couple times. And when I do, you know what, they talk to me like I'm some kind of groupie. They completely misunderstand me. Then it's like really draining to do the interview, because I have to correct them like on everything they say, because they don't get me and because they didn't read it. So, yeah, and I just can't do those.
Well, I remember when we were talking about doing an interview like in early December, and I was having some health issues. I ended up going to the hospital, and then we talked after, and I said, I haven't finished your book yet, and I don't want to have you on until I finish it. I
remember.
Yeah. And because it's important, because I wanted to speak to you.
I'm so glad that you actually read it. And because of all the people, and I hope I'm not offending anyone else, but I've told you this, you're like talking to a therapist. Like you're not like talking to, a guy that's trying to get attention on air. I actually enjoy my conversations with you, and I get something out of them. Like I feel like I grow from them, so I'm always happy to talk to you.
Well, that makes me feel good, but thank you very much for those, for saying that. I appreciate it. As far as the documentary goes, when you look at what you talked about in your book, and now you're doing, you produce this, you help produce this documentary with Eric Carr. Was there a different approach with the documentary than there was with what you wanted to write about?
Oh, I am not that hands-on, to be honest with you.
Okay.
In the documentary, I have very little control or power. I'm more because I think because I've helped with everything else for 30 years. And I just like an obvious thing to make me an official part of it after, I am always a part of everything. I think Eric's sister brought me in mostly for love and respect of me, and the help that I've given is mostly, some of it was, helping set up interviews and my own personal interviews and advice on the direction, helping find the right camera people, editors, like I help connect the dots, but I don't look at the footage every day. What I'm saying, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not a full-time job for me. It's just kind of, I guess that's how I explained it right. Like, it's not, I don't think I emotionally could be, I couldn't have a full-time job at it. My contributions are definitely not every day. They're as needed and, from a comfortable distance for me.
Last question.
And of course, the spokesperson for it is where I come in and do the most work, because I'm going to be the one who people are going to turn to for the interviews. So, that's why, another reason why I'm going to have to mostly say wait for the documentary, because, one can get burned out on the same thing over and over. And when the documentary comes out, there'll be all kinds of new subject matter to talk about, because we are releasing a lot of footage that's never been seen before. And I can't tell you what, but there are some things that I'm in, and they're quite emotional and never been seen, and there'll be a lot to talk about. Let's put it that way. Got to pace myself.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Is there anything in this documentary that people are going to be surprised about? And it sounds like there is going to be, which I'm sure Kiss fans and Eric Carr fans are going to be interested in that. Absolutely. I mean, you've seen firsthand, the dedication Kiss fans have and Eric Carr fans have, and this will be good for them to see this kind of stuff that they've never seen before. That's always exciting for a fan whenever that stuff exciting, especially when we celebrate his passing of 30 years. It's exciting, and it's also it's also sad.
The documentary is going to be a celebration of his life. It's going with the spin on the documentary is coming from explaining why he is still so important and why he continues to grow in his fame 30 years after his death. His following just grows and grows, and why we explain why and what a special person he was, and the joy that he spreads, and why it never dies. It keeps living on, and so it's not he was born this year and died that year. It's not one of those. It's more. We are really putting in a capsule just how special he was, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be uplifting and entertaining, and it's not going to be anything like you've ever seen. It's like this. There is a documentary on him. The same producer, Jack Sawyer, and his sister Loretta, and I'm in it. That's Tale of the Fox, and so they already did that, and you can go watch that documentary if you want to see where he was born and where he grew up and the entire, the history of his life. So that's great in its own way, but this one's going to be different because we don't want to do the same thing again, and now it's a long time later. So that one was 20 years ago.
Well, Eric Carr is my Kiss drummer, and I mean that is obviously Peter Criss was the original, but when I got introduced to Kiss, it was with Eric. My first album I ever bought was Lick It Up, and I still remember being in the grocery cart with my mother, checking out, and they have that magazine rack where you've got all different types of tabloid magazines and People and Us Weekly, and I don't know if it was a People or an Us Weekly. I don't remember that, but I remember the introduction of the Fox. And I remember staring at that because there are these four guys in makeup that I was like, what is the deal with this? I was probably 5-6 years old. And then later on, I took my paper out money and I bought Kiss Lick It Up. And so I always considered my introduction to Kiss and why I've always preferred Eric to Peter is because of that. It was just, based on my introduction to the band.
I don't get involved in favorite Kiss drummer.
Yeah, no, I'm just telling you my personal
Obviously, I'm going to say mine is Eric Carr too.
Yeah.
I don't need a reason why.
Moving on, though, we also had a bit of news about another subject in your book, and that was David Lee Roth. He announced his retirement about 3 weeks ago. It said some interesting things. What you can kind of decipher what he said. He doesn't come out and say it. And I don't know if David Lee Roth would ever just come out and say something.
I don't think he would just come right out and say anything. It's not his style.
Right.
It never has been.
It's like a word
it's just
puzzle.
Not the way he speaks. Yes, it's not the way he speaks.
And he said some interesting things about he thought he was going to be the first one to go out of the band. He thought the Marlboro Man was going to get him because we've known.
I read a lot into that sentence, and I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, because he said,
but I thought he was trying to tell us that he's sick. To be honest,
yeah,
I hope I'm wrong. But he said eventually the Marlboro Man gets you. Now he could have been referring to Eddie Van Halen with that statement. He could have been referring to Eddie's cancer, but I kind of took it as a hint that perhaps he's not going to be able to perform and needs to consider his own health. Otherwise, why would he be retiring? Because he looks great. He looks fit. He's going to perform in Vegas. He's still hugely popular. Do you retire just because you want to be happy when you're single? And he's not like he's got kids or grandchildren. I'm sorry to be negative, but I'm speculating. I'm concerned, actually. I love David Lee Roth, and I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. But I took it as that as soon as I saw that sentence, like it put the fear in my heart. And I just saw, oh my God, everybody just leave this guy alone, because people were, oh yeah, no, everyone threatens that. He's just trying to get ticket sales. Like, he's just trying to say that to so the ticket sales go up in Vegas. And I just thought that was really heartless. I think those were crude. I refrained from engaging in troll arguments, so I did not engage in any of those. It just made me sick when I saw people saying that stuff, and that's when I just shut off the computer and walk away. I'm like, I just can't take these awful people today. I can't look at this, because it's like I don't think anybody that didn't have a heart wouldn't be concerned when you read. I'm probably too concerned. I hope I'm not reading too much into it and spreading rumors that he's not well. But let's face it, none of us are getting any younger. He's 11 years older than me, and I feel my health deteriorating. I just found out today I've got a bone disease, by the way. It's what's it called? Osteosteosis. You heard it here first. But after I broke my wrist on the counter, it's just after you're 50, you have to have a bone density test. So I just got my results back today, and apparently I have pre-osteoporosis, which is, my bones are abnormally aging, disintegrating. I'm not surprised, though, honestly. I have something called degenerative disc disease. So I had my L4 replaced when I was only 40, and a few years later I had 2 herniated discs in my neck. So, you know what? Recently I read that David Lee Roth, during the pandemic, he had back surgery for a disc, and I'm like, oh, finally. I already did that when I was 40, So I'm not trying to be insensitive. I'm just saying, you know what? It's not unrealistic. When you get older, our bodies break down and things happen. And I just have to take some calcium and vitamin D every day and cut down on caffeine and alcohol, which I've already done. And, exercise. Yes, I've got to start exercising more. But if not, I'll be hunched over and have osteoporosis by the time I'm his age, and I wouldn't be able to perform. So there you go.
Well, I hope, you're able to help your bone, I can't even pronounce it.
I think it's called osteoporosis. I don't know. I just got the results today. I'm just looking it up going, oh, great. But, I don't, it just basically means I should, bones will break or fracture more easily than somebody younger with bones that aren't deteriorating. And you kind of peak your mass bone density at 35 years old, and then it goes down. But apparently mine is lower than it should be for my age, which is why I fell off the counter and broke a bone so easily. So it shouldn't have broken just from falling off the counter. But that's why they did the test. So that's why, that's why I found that out. And, I'm not crying over it. It is what it is. Like I said, you know what? It's not that surprising because I found out when I was 40 that I had degenerative disc disease and no one else in my family does. And I'm prone to the injuries. And after I found that out, you know what? I couldn't do boot camp anymore. Like my friends would invite me to do crazy wall climbing workouts and stuff. I'm like, I can't. Like from now on, I can just do yoga and I can go spinning. I can hike. Like I can't do heavy weights. I can't do anything risky. Every time I did, actually, I would end up injured again. And then at least when I got my diagnosis, it made sense, So it's just good to know. It's good to know about your own health and know your limits. That's all.
Well, I hope that you can manage it, and it. I'm
not in any pain, or and I'm saying I don't want you to feel bad for me. I wouldn't even know if they didn't do the bone scan. It's a bone density test. I wouldn't know. I mean, it's not like I walk around in pain. I'm okay, but it's better to know so that I don't wind up walking around in pain later. I just have to start doing things to prevent it.
Getting back to the David Lee Roth comment, there was two things.
Right, enough about me. Let's talk about David Lee Roth.
There were two things.
I was just trying to relate. I was just trying to say everybody's human. Everyone is human,
I know.
Basically.
But moving back to what he said, there were two things in his statement that leads me to believe that there's something more, something going on. And it was the one where he talks about Eddie passing, and he says objects are closer in the mirror than they appear, and that object is him, basically.
Right.
And then he also stated that his doctors tell him that every time he goes on stage, he's putting himself at risk. So is it his heart? It is something we don't know, but there's obviously something.
I tell you way too much, Jay. I thought there was something for a long time. And I know him personally many years. And, he really is a nice guy, by the way. Like, he really is a nice guy. So he's a very private, guarded sort of person. I think that naturally, when you're that way to begin with, then you're certainly not going to share it if something very personal in nature comes up. So it just makes sense that he wouldn't.
Well, he's always had a bit of mystery about him, and he's been, he doesn't, spend a lot of time in the public eye. I mean, obviously, back in the 80s, I think he did more. But once his solo career, after kind of Skyscraper and maybe, a little
after
enough.
That, I spent tons of times out in nightclubs and strip joints and restaurants, like partying with him, like tons of times, in the late 80s and early 90s, up until I think 97, when I 96 was probably like the last time I was hanging out with him in clubs. So right before I became a playmate, and then I didn't see him for many years until, was it 2018? Was it 19? If it's a bad memory, 18, when I ran into him at a charity event, and he spotted me in the audience and remembered me and invited me backstage to chat with him. And he seemed very healthy. He was drinking whiskey. He seemed calmer than I've ever seen him. I was talking his ear off. But, you know, and he didn't seem sick, but he seemed kind of deeper than I had remembered him. I don't know if it's just age or he wasn't on coke this time. I mean, I don't know what it was, but he seemed, you know, like a deeper person, which, you know, again, we're completely analyzing David Lee Roth out of our asses. We don't know anything. I don't know anything besides, everybody
well,
else.
I think the focus should be on just the statement, right? And I think that,
that rearview mirror thing is telling. If you know David Lee Roth, you know his interviews, and the way that he talks, that is, it's a metaphor for death is closer than it seems. Like what you seem far away is actually in the next minute. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm exaggerating, but that's what he means. It's like objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. I hope everyone listening drives a car, and you know that, you know, when you look in your rear view mirror, the car can be closer than it seems. It seems like it's far away, and that is a metaphor for time.
I think it's
like
that.
I
think it's that, and him saying that, you know, his doctors say that he puts himself at risk every time he gets on stage.
Well, you know, we don't know if he has what he has.
Right. We don't know what he has. I mean, is it a heart condition? Is it, you know, whatever it is, you know, we don't know. But there's obviously something that is prohibiting him from moving on after the Vegas shows and doing more stuff. And people really expect David Lee Roth to be jumping all over the place like he did in 1984, you know, and well, as I said, you know, like I don't talk about myself all the time. That's the only way I can compare it, is if I try to imagine like me being able to do what I used to do when I was 28, you know, like I just can't. So he's in fantastic shape. He looks amazing. You know, he's so fit. So that's why I said I wonder if it's more than meets the eye, because on the outside, like, you know, his body is incredibly fit. You can tell he keeps his body in shape. It's more than a herniated disc. I can tell you that much. Yeah, I think it's something more, and at some point we are going to know. We are going to find out, and you know, I do expect though once these Vegas shows.
Him, and I made my. I don't know what else more I can do. I profess my undying love to Dave all the time publicly. I must get back to him. But after, you know, when I saw him in 2018, I told him I was writing a book, and he said, "Am I in it?" And I said, "Oh yeah, you're the first sentence." And I told him I would send him a copy when it was done, and his manager gave me her card, and so I did what I said, and it was I sent it to him it was literally 4 days before Eddie Van Halen passed. He must have got his management office must have got the book. So honestly, I'm not sure he ever really got it. Because I'm sure that they were bombarded at that point. But I did send it along with a signed copy of my Playboy magazine, and I also sent his manager a copy of my book as well, and the thank you for all of your inspiration card. And then literally it was like I mailed it, and a few days later I heard about Eddie's passing, and I went, oh, what terrible timing that was. Like, you know, of course I'm not going to be like, I never followed up. I mean, what am I going to do? Go, hey, did you read the book? I mean, like, I would be so insensitive. So I've never, you know, I've never contacted him since, but now that we're having this conversation, maybe I should just maybe he'll never get it. Maybe he will, but maybe I should just send a card saying, just wanted to know that I feel for you and I'm hoping everything's fine. And that's that. Either he gets it or he doesn't, All you can do is put yourself and your love out there. And, if something happened to him, I would sure be glad that at least I tried,
Yeah, and kind of, what I was going at and saying is, if it wasn't something, if it wasn't serious, I don't see him stopping performing because he loves to perform. I mean, that's what he has. That's who he is. That's
what he was born to do.
He was born to do.
That's what
He's born to
do.
perform, and for him to, retire, I think that leads me to believe that there's probably something more, and I do expect him to kind of, I don't want to say be a recluse, but I do think once these Vegas shows are over, maybe he'll do one or two interviews. I don't know, but I don't expect him to be, clamoring for the limelight. I mean, if he puts that statement out, he's basically putting, getting ready to write the final chapter. And, it's sad to think what the possibilities are, although you don't want to speculate, but Dave doesn't put that comment out, that statement out, unless there is something really going on. Because he's never, although he was, someone that...
I don't think, I'm going to talk to all the trolls.
Let me
okay, you finish and then I'll
let me finish. Even though Dave was larger than life when he was performing, he's still larger than life. And
exactly, which is what I was going to say.
Yeah,
there's to trolls. Dave does not need to go threatening to retire.
That's
to
what
sell
I'm saying.
Concert tickets to 6. Was he playing 6 shows?
Yeah.
How many days does he? I think it's like 6 days or something in Vegas. Do you think at this point in his career he really fake retirement or sell tickets? No, he doesn't.
No, that's not his style.
He'd sell out anyway.
That's not his style.
He'd sell out anyway. No, he's not a bullshitter. It's not his style. So he's not. That's just a bunch of little people behind their computers thinking they, have something to say. And you know what? It's just, not only is it insensitive, but it's just dead wrong. Nobody, if you're going to threaten to retire, go to a stadium, go be Kiss and do the End of the Road tour, okay? Stay on this road for years all over the world. Even before David Lee Roth got booted off of that, he never said that was his retirement tour, Okay, so if anyone wants to talk shit, I'm sorry about Kiss fans, you're going to hate me for saying it, but why aren't you bashing on supposedly the end of the road, which is never going to be the end of anything? Those guys might deserve it, but David Lee Roth and his little 6 gigs at the casino in Vegas, shut up.
Yeah, that's just never been Dave's style. I've always, as much as he is the ultimate rock star and the ultimate showman, I also think Dave is aware of, even though he may have, maybe stuck around a little bit, an inch, too long, I think he deserves to make that decision. But I think that, if he was just going to stop performing and not, he would not say anything. But I think that, with Eddie's anniversary of, the passing, the anniversary of Eddie passing, and the statement kind of being close to that, I think he's trying to tell Van Halen fans and fans of David Lee Roth that, Van Halen, obviously Eddie passing, but, the two faces of that band were Eddie and Dave.
Dave is an evasive character. I have to say, even recalling the times I would hang out with him one-on-one, in the late 80s, early 90s, and be on his arm, having, not, I don't mean in the bedroom. I mean, we would hang out, in clubs and, but I'd be intimate conversations all night long with him as if I were, your date, but he was always, a little bit evasive about things. Even when we were bonding on subjects, that's just his way. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's never been like a very direct person. Even when he's agreeing with you, he'll answer you in kind of an off kind of way that makes you kind of think in circles to get back to where he is. You know what I'm saying? I think he's so smart, actually. I think he has such a brilliant mind that he almost speaks a different language than other people, you know? And I've always appreciated that about him. Not everybody gets it, but I do. But I think there's like, it's just, you know, it's not to be said it's good or bad or right or wrong. It's just the way he is. He's not a person that is very direct or that connects deeply about things, even when he is connecting with you. Because I know, because we used to connect, like he kind of goes around it while he's connecting with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, he's a wordsmith, right? He has a different way of communicating, and you know, even when I used to watch his podcast, the David Lee Roth Show, which I am so disappointed.
You're going to crack me up because I watched that too. And you know, when I was backstage, the time in 2018 when you know he summoned me backstage, I mentioned that to him because I had just watched an episode like about safety or something that he did, and I mentioned to him, and he's like, "You watched that?" And I said, "Yeah, I always watch that show." And he said, "Well, you're the only one."
No.
Yeah,
I mean,
but see what I'm saying? He has humility about him. Like people always talk about how arrogant he is and a big ego, and I knew him personally, and I said I never saw a shred of that. Even in 2018, when I told him I watched the show, he goes, "Well, you're the only one."
I
so
thought it was brilliant.
You watched it too, Jay.
I thought it was brilliant. You know, I mean, you got a peek into his genius, which was so like the episodes were just, you couldn't take your eyes off of it, you know, because he would talk about.
I hope if he's going to retire from the stage, I hope he'll continue doing that.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what we get from him, I would love it, and I think, you know, his personality obviously is not for everyone, but if you can get past that showmanship type of, you know, David Lee Roth, and just listen to his words and listen to the stories, it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating.
And I know I'm a girl and he likes me, but I was not, you know, I wasn't on the same level as somebody in management, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't know him that way, but I have to say, I never saw him be mean to anyone. I never saw him have an attitude with anyone. And I was around him a lot. I mean, he was nice to everybody that walked up and approached us everywhere we were. So I never saw him be an asshole. He was never an asshole to not one person. Anytime they would come up and fawn over him, he'd be like, "And this is Carrie." You know, like, he would just be like nice to everyone and introduce me. He never had an ego or an attitude. And, you know, I just didn't see that. And you know me, Jay, I have a big mouth. I'll say anything about anybody. And if I saw it, I would say it. I didn't see it. And I'm also going to be fair and say I didn't see him in the 80s. I wasn't on tour with him. I wasn't his manager. I wasn't in his band. You know, who knows? It's just a whole different experience. I was just, you know, a girl that he had a crush on. But, you know, like, I was definitely around him enough that I'm very perceptive, and I always have been intuitive about people. The guy is not an asshole at all, not even a little bit. And I've seen him wasted, I've seen him sober, I've seen him in all different conditions, and I never saw an asshole. So,
well, I always thought his stage persona was just that. It was a stage persona, right? It was the, you know, his persona was like the Eddie Van Halen on guitar. It was, you know, this wild, crazy playing.
He was never, as you could imagine, as you tell the, can I say the F word on your show?
Absolutely.
He was never trying to fuck me either, by the way. Like, all these times that I'm telling you that I hung out with him, all of these countless nights, he was never trying to take me home. Okay, once, but, you know, there was one time I went, but like but, you know, that was not his mission. Like, he truly just seemed to just adore me and just like bask in being around me like a almost shy boy. Like he just like adored me. And he was not like, he never tried to fuck me in a bathroom stall or anything you'd expect out of David Lee Roth. You know, from the 80s, he never ever did that. Like he just treated me like I was this sweet, pretty young thing that he adored. And he eventually, I tell it in my book, eventually one night, I know, I went home with him. But read the book to find out about that. But, you know, like that, I've known enough slime bags in my life, you know, that are trying to be what Steel Panther sings about, those kind of 80s guys. And it's a fun joke. And maybe he was like that back then, but that was not my experience with him. So all I can talk about is my experience, and that was my experience.
And that's all you can really talk about. I mean, I know there's people that have speculated a lot about things with David Lee Roth, and some of the things that they speculate are things that they shouldn't. You know, I just feel that. I
remember like yesterday, the first time I actually connected to him, and I was standing at this club, Black and Blue, and I was talking to his manager, and he leaned in to his manager's ear and asked him to introduce me to him, like politely. And I was like blushing. And I knew what I was doing, by the way. Like I knew I was just like planting myself there, waiting for him to notice me. But he did. And then he politely leaned in and asked the manager or bodyguard, wherever he was, to make the introduction. Oh, you're bringing back great memories, Jay. Thank you.
Hey, you know, every time you come on here is a trip down memory lane for you.
Yes, it is. And some are, yeah, I have you know, and I'm ready. This is good. I'm glad we're talking today because I needed a little Carrie time, and now I'm in a really good place.
Well, you know, you've called me the Oprah of podcasters.
I mean it. You are the Oprah of podcasts.
You know, when I got into podcasting, I'm like, you know what, God damn it, I am going to be called the Oprah of podcasters one day. And then Carrie Stevens comes on my show the second time, or maybe that was the first time. She goes, you're like the Oprah of podcasters. I'm like, bingo, I reached my goal.
Well, can you always get me to go deep? You know, you get me to talk about very heavy stuff that I don't usually talk about. But I love that, and that's what makes it entertaining for me. I don't, you know, the fluff stuff. Where were you born? Did you? I don't. Just go read my book, all right? That's why I wrote it. You know, so people will. Nothing drives me more insane than when I have to answer. Like when I do interviews, and it's like my friends will ask, "How did it go?" Afterwards, all excited about it, and they want to listen to it, and I'm like, don't bother. You already read my book, so you know everything I said. That's all I talked about. They just asked me the same things that are in my book. And it's more interesting for me if we can touch on what's in the book, then let's go deeper than I went in my book. Because I already did that. And then like if the audience is listening and they already read the book, maybe they want to know more about me. So we're giving it to them. And if they don't know about me yet, well, you know what? Now my book's not boring because I'm not repeating everything that's already there, you know?
Well, that's why you're one of my favorite guests, is because when you do come on, you know, you do allow these, you know, allow me to question you like this and have these conversations with you. And that's fun. Like, even though like sometimes it may, you know, spawn some emotion, it still is something that I like to have those conversations with you because I know you'll give me the real answers. And, you know, I've always, you know, there are a few interviews I've done where I know I'm getting the answer that he gave to another question, but it's the same answer of someone that I'm interviewing. So I always appreciate the honesty and the rawness. And I think that's what makes you. And I think that's what makes people gravitate towards you and want to hear what you have to say, because, you know, even though it may seem, you know, this conversation sometimes goes off in different avenues and different tangents, it's real, and it's how people
It's always
talk.
real, and it's always honest. And I think that's, you're right. That is my appeal. You know, it's always more interesting to hear the truth. And to predict what someone's going to say it's just that. It's predictable and it's boring. So I don't know. I'm proud to be original, and I actually wouldn't know how to do. I wouldn't know how to do anything but besides be me. So I hope, if love me or leave me, and it's the only thing I know how to do.
What do you got? You got the Monsters of Rock thing going on. Obviously, you got the documentary we talked about. Is there anything else in Carrie's world, rock and roll wise or otherwise, other things that, you're doing, you're developing, creating?
I'm like, no more. I've got enough to do. And actually, no. I hope to. I really hope to. I mean, I've got, this fucking pandemic. It's like, it's still messing everything up in the industry. So I'm still an actress, but auditions, I have them seldomly. And the projects that I booked during this time have still not happened. I'm getting so bored with it that I'm deciding I might never want to do it, because the projects that are going on, I have friends that work on them. It sounds so fucking miserable to even be on a movie set right now. Like, you can't even sit with other people at lunch. Like, you can't socialize. You have to, be COVID tested daily, even if you're vaccinated. And like, really the fun of working is meeting people and hanging out and bonding. A movie set becomes like a family. So that is like, I'm not sure when or if that is coming back. Honestly, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure, Jay. Like, my passion for that industry is, I'm not sure I'm going to get it back. I just don't know. Like, every time I get an audition, I'm like, ugh, we're few and far between. And I'm like, this is not fun. Like, this is, I have to do it in my house. You have a solid white background, slate your name, and then do your, you never know if anyone even saw it. Like, you never get any feedback. You don't get a casting director or your agent saying, oh, that was good, that was bad. You just don't hear anything. At least on social media, you get a like or something. Imagine you just do all this work and then nothing. So it's waiting for the grass to grow. And lately, it's just not growing. And it's just, when I was doing it before, I actually got to go to an audition. And I made some of my very best friends, by the way, in waiting rooms at auditions. And you go in and you can feel the energy of the people in the room. And then you can get immediate feedback. And if you sucked or you didn't. They give you another chance to do it again once in a while. There's just no satisfaction in standing in your house doing it for yourself. It's just not, it's not making me happy. Let's put it that way. So I'm facing big changes. I never imagined myself being on air on Monsters of Rock, but I do have a few visions, which I've had for many years before Monsters of Rock, for TV shows about rock. And I'm hoping that now that I'm between being an author and writing a book called Revelations of a Rock and Roll Centerfold and my status as a DJ, I'm hoping to repitch some of those ideas, and maybe, now that I've grown my status, maybe I'll be able to make them happen. That's the only thing left in the entertainment industry I think I would want to do. Other than that, like, I don't really give a shit. Can I just put that out there? Like, I just don't. I just want to be happy. And back to David Lee Roth. That's one of my other theories about David Lee Roth, is maybe he just wants to be happy, and it's as simple as that. Because we don't know. We don't know what makes David Lee Roth happy. Maybe he's just happy to stay home, smoke pot, and draw, and he doesn't want the pressure of being on stage. Maybe, maybe he's just at a point in his life where he's changed, he's not into it, and it doesn't sound appealing. Kind of like I just said, you know what? I used to love acting, and now the industry's changed so much, and the whole thing just, it doesn't sound like fun. It's a pain in the ass and getting no satisfaction. So, who knows? Maybe, who knows what's going on in his head, to be fair.
Well, I think of that interview Robert Plant did on House of Strombo, and it was like 2-3 years ago. And
Oh man, I didn't hear that one.
yeah, he talked about having that moment. I don't know if you remember when he did that tour with Jimmy Page Plant. It was like mid 90s. And after the second album, they did another worldwide tour, and he was performing, and it was this huge crowd, and I think it was South America, I want to say he was. And he just, like, while he was performing, he was like, I don't need this anymore. Like, I don't need 100,000 people staring back at me. I don't need, all that. So what did he do? He basically stripped everything down, and he has been touring with his friends, his musician friends, with different styles of, on his albums and different styles of music. He's really into, bluegrass, and he's really into rockabilly, and he's happy. He's content. He never, strives to be more than what he is right now. He's, you talked about it, like being happy with yourself and being comfortable who you are. I think, like Robert Plant, I think David Lee Roth has maybe reached that point where he's accomplished so many things. There's not much left that he can accomplish. He's traveled all over the world. He's had all these, jungle adventures and doing different things with his career, whether it's an EMT, whether it's, learning how to be a samurai swordsman. He's probably just wants to do some things. And
yeah, let's reflect on that.
Yeah.
When 9/11 happened, did he make a big announcement that he was going to go be an EMT? No, he just did it.
Right. So that plays into the point. That plays into the point
Yes,
that when he makes a statement, right, he's not doing anything for anything else. But when he makes a statement like that, there's something going on. He's not trying to sell tickets. There's something going on.
And he never, by the way, he never got enough credit for that. What kind of a person is so selfless that they abandon their rock star image to try to be anonymous and to help other people in the time of need, and a city that was broken and anonymously, like for no attention, and until he was recognized and it came out in the press. He's a good guy. That's a guy with a good heart, with good intentions, who doesn't always need accolades. He's not that egotistical guy that people say. He's misunderstood.
Also, too, when you think about it, is, I remember when the news broke that he was an EMT in New York, and everybody was like, oh man, falling on hard times with, after Van Halen.
Oh, people are fucking assholes, man.
That guy.
The difference between what I said, and if anybody is knowledgeable and they're not just a troll, the guy comes from money. Like, he came from money in the first place. His father was well-to-do, Pasadena, high-end ophthalmologist. He put all the money into Van Halen, So he's the guy, and he made tons of money on Van Halen. He's not poor. That's not why he went to go be an EMT. He will never be poor. He didn't do it because he needed to make, what do they make? $20 an hour? I don't know what they make, but not enough. They don't make enough. It was basically charity work for David Lee Roth. And anybody that says, well, times are tough, you know what they are? They're the same assholes that say, and we shouldn't give them attention. The ones that say, oh, he's saying he's retiring just because he's trying to sell tickets. You know what I would do, to be honest? If there was indeed my last 6 shows, I would tell everybody, yes, this is the last chance to see me. And I would find the most cool way, like he did, not to alarm people, but to alert people and just let people know that, yeah, this is the last time, because that's kind of that's the right thing to do for his fans, to just let them know, because a lot of them do care and they want to be there. And that is respect for them. That's the way I see it. So
yeah, I mean, if someone's trying to sell tickets, they're going to go on Good Morning America. They're going to go on, whatever talk show.
No, that was highly respectful.
Yeah,
just to let everyone else know.
He released that statement to a local. Yeah, he released that statement to a local radio station. First, yeah, a local. I think it was Texas.
Because he's not stupid, and he knew everybody would pick it up.
Right. But the point is that if he was trying to sell tickets, for Vegas, he would have gone on a higher profile interview, 2020, 60
minutes. I don't think he was having a problem selling tickets, and
I don't think so either.
Would.
I'm just saying though,
no,
if he
was like as soon as they went on sale, that happened, and I think it was just. I think it coincided, and I think I'm just again putting myself, because that's how I always try to figure other people out. I imagine the shoe on the other foot, and if it were me, and that is what I would do. Like I would want to let people know, if you want to see me, this is the time. But I definitely wouldn't want to make an announcement or make people feel sorry for me. Like, oh, come see me before I die. Come see me because this sucks, but I signed the contract and I can't get out of it, but I hate this business now. Either way, it's not a good answer. So, you know what? I think he just did it as smooth and cool for any situation that may be going on. He handled it well. And I maintain my love for David Lee Roth. I'm always his biggest fan.
Well, Carrie, it's been a blast as always. We could talk forever. And I appreciate you doing this. Appreciate you coming on for the 300th episode.
And again, it is my honor. And thank you so much for asking me.
Well, everybody.
And you know what? We've both grown so much. And since the first time we met. And I'm just so glad I know you. And thank you for being my friend.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for being mine. Out of all the people that I've met doing this, I always think of you as one of the most genuine people that I know. And I know a lot of people may think that you're, wild and crazy, but I don't. I am. And you are. But to the core, you are. Okay. You are a great. You are a great soul.
Multi-dimensional.
You are a great soul, most important.
You can be a great soul and be wild and crazy.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, that's Carrie Stevens. I'm Jay Scott.
And that is David Lee Roth. I think he is wild and crazy, but he's also a great soul.
I don't know him as much as you do, obviously, but I'll take your word for it on that.
Yeah, take my word for it.
All right, everybody, I'm Jay Scott. That's Carrie Stevens. Thanks for tuning in again. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Take care of each other.
Mama. Thanks for making all my favorite recipes.
Hi, Ma. Thanks for your unfiltered advice.
Hi, Mom. Thanks for always being by the phone.
Hey, Mom. Happy Mother's Day.
When you ship UPS Air at the UPS Store, your items arrive on time or your money back. Guaranteed at no extra cost. Exclusively at the UPS Store U.S. retail locations. Visit the upsstore.com/airshipping for full details. Terms and conditions apply. Send your Mother's Day gifts at the UPS Store and we'll get your gratitude there on time.
300 Favorite Albums with James Campion.
I don't think there's an album I know better front to back. I learned how to play guitar to a lot of these songs.
If I could pick one record to hand someone and say this is what it feels like to be a woman, it would be this record.
You know, the engineer that was recording the album for us was a novice engineer. He was really the janitor.
The first half of these sessions for the album were totally improvisatory in the sense that they went into the studio and just dealt with whatever happened.
There was space that was left for these listeners to kind of discover it for themselves. That they would say, yeah, my parents listened to it, but I had to build my own relationship to it.
Happiness, good living, peace, love, rock and roll. I just feel like this album is such a wonderful translation of that concept.
People understood they were in a world historical moment, and it felt like it was going to last forever. In fact, the infinite spaces that they explored in The Giant Now is part of what made that explosion so huge.